Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome on in. Welcome to the 411 podcast. Tonight, it is Spiritual Sunday. So I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome on in. And before we go ahead and get started, I want to give a very special thank you to my executive producer. I want to thank God for giving me another opportunity to come out here and give you the 411 podcast. Also, want to give a very special thank you to a few people out there who support along the way. Thank you for coming on in. We have Alex Coquito all the way from Puerto Rico. Thank you so much. Colleen Rue, Mr. Ian West. Y'all can go ahead and check out Ian West on some of the earlier versions of Disc 5 Restoration because he's on the live season as well. So thank you so much, Mr. Ian West. Danny Ellie, thank you so much for Survivor Voice podcast. Thank you for supporting as well. Corey Gory, Miss Sheila, the credit boss. And I want to say what's up to Nini out there. What's up to Miss SOS. What's up to Author Birdman 313. I want to welcome y'all into Spiritual Sunday. If you can please do me a favor, please like, comment, share, subscribe, tag a friend, let them know, wake them up, let them know what we're doing right here. We have Spiritual Sundays. We have Mental Mondays, Transformational Tuesday, of course, Wind Down Wednesday, Coaching Sessions Thursday, and Financial Friday. You never know what you're going to get on a 411 podcast, Reading Between the Wine show. So come right on in, and we'll see what happens, what we can make some magic happen tonight. And I also want to say that it doesn't matter if it's one person, 2, 3, 4, 10, 5, 100. Doesn't matter. My goal is to just break through to at least just one person. If it's just one person that gives me a comment, if it's one person who DMs me, one person texts me and says, you know what? I got something from that show, or I got something from that post, or I got something from that reel. That's what my goal is. So, of course, hey, if it happens that way and we move the masses from millions, then great. But I know exactly where we started at, and from 19, and I actually lost count. So, but I just know that we started off with 19 people supporting the 411 podcast. And last time I checked, it was, and this is probably just a guess from maybe about a year or two when I really started digging into it. I'm just going to throw it out there from collectively across the platforms: Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, TikTok, D Live, Twitch, Daily Motion. I'm going to lowball it and say maybe 14 to 16,000 followers. But if I can guess, I probably would say high would be maybe 20K. And that's not all at one time. So just imagine as we continue to rock and roll, if we can get everybody aligned, on the same front, same place, same time. But in any case, if we just get through to one person, then I've done my job. So let me go ahead and recap it to the last episode. So the last episode, we spoke about Mr. Jaden, who teaches about financial literacy, breaking generational curses, and, doing right with your money. But unfortunately, he was 3 months behind in his rent. And he was more focusing on building his message and building his brand than focusing on his financial aspect of his life. And it happens to so many people. So, we can say, that's a terrible situation. I can't believe that Jaden is doing this. I can't believe he's doing that. But your next door neighbor probably is doing the same exact thing. Your best friend probably is doing the same exact thing. The boss that you look up to at work is probably doing the same exact thing. Because just because you have a nice car and you have a nice home and you have nice jewelry, clothes, does not mean that you really have it all together financially. And that's what most of us are tripped up in this society, and we get the game all twisted up. Because having nice things, appearing rich, that's what everybody strives for, because they think that if you drive a nice car, if you have a nice house, hair done, nails done, everything big, that you're really doing it big. But in reality, that's not the case. A lot of those people are in severe consumer debt, can't sleep at night. You wouldn't want to look at what the inside of their house looks like because it wouldn't match the outside. And that's another aspect of it too. Their inner dialogue and their external dialogue does not match either. So I know we went in a little bit on Mr. Jaden, but one thing that we said he needed to do was take action. And also, maybe he should probably get a coach, get some sort of coach to help guide him, because what he's speaking about, what he's teaching, what his messaging is, makes sense. But from my perspective, and again, this is just my opinion, I'm not an expert. I'm not here to, you know, give anybody any advice. You do your own due diligence and you figure it out yourself. But I can say that there were some similarities in Jaden's story and my story. So I wanted to make sure that my story was clear. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, spreading any confusion. And my internal dialogue was not matching up with my external dialogue. And I wanted to get some greater alignment. So I had to seek coaching. I had to seek the professionals to help get me on track. So that's why we're still here. That's why we're doing what we're doing and teaching financial literacy and the aspect of debt-free living from a spiritual, mental, physical, and financial aspect. So if you want to learn out more about Mr. Jaden and the conversation that I had with my special guest, Miss SOS, please go ahead and watch that replay. And on that note, we're going to get right on into tonight's episode. So, song of the day, You Shall Receive by the Clark Sisters, released in 2020 off of their album, The Return. Now, this album is very important to me because during 2020, I was going through some terrible situations. It was just, it was a rough period in 2020. And I must say that there are some key albums that I will always remember. When you look back at the decade, when you look back at your life, when you look back at a bad situation that you were in, when you look back at an era of your life, I would say that this album from the Clark Sisters definitely helped me, sustain and maintain during that period. So shout out to the Clark Sisters. I love the way that they do gospel music and the way that I want to say they flirt with R&B and hip hop. For someone like me that didn't grow up in the church, but I grew up in music, it was very important for them to do that, for people like me, because from that I was able to dig into the gospel bag a little bit more because I learned from it through the Clark Sisters. And all types of scriptures, all types of biblical principles are outlined and written in, sewn in throughout their lyrics. So this will always be a memorable album, something that has helped save my life. Music saved my life. That's why I'm still here. And I have to give it to the Clark Sisters. I love this. I love this album. So many different ones. Give It to Him, Masterpiece, especially, when it took until 2020 before I started to look in the mirror and actually look back at myself and say, good job. I like what I see. Songs like Masterpiece was definitely played an intricate part of that. Uh, while I'm here right now doing what I'm doing, broken to minister, hit rock bottom in order to be able to get to the point where I'm at here today. Had I not hit rock bottom, had I not go through some challenging times, had I not, been broken down, I wouldn't be able to minister the way that I do. And the 4-in-1 podcast and Reading Between the Wines is my ministry. And yeah, like I said before, I can go on and on and on about this album, but tonight it serves a specific purpose with this song, "You Shall Receive." And whatever you don't have today, the only thing that I can say is, and I'm just speaking, I don't know who I'm speaking to. I'm just speaking from experience. Ask and you shall receive. 2020 was the most one of the. If I had time to stack it up and see which one was worse, I don't have time for that right now. But it was one of the most detrimental periods of my life. I've been I've been there before, but this part I was a little bit more wiser, and it was just detrimental. Put it that way. It was a setback. But like I said, I've been there before, so I knew a little bit how to navigate through it a little bit better than before. But it still had its own interesting parts. But there were a lot of things that I didn't have, and the only thing that I did have was my faith, and I had to ask. I had to ask for the things that I didn't have. I had to ask for the knowledge. I had to ask for the experience. I had to ask for a lot of different things, the strength, the courage, the energy to continue to get up and keep fighting when I wanted to give up. So for those of you out there tonight, if there's something that you don't have, the only thing that I have to say is I take it back to this Clark Sister song. I take it back to the scriptures. Ask and you shall receive. If you don't ask, you won't receive. And looking back at myself, looking back at my life, the younger version of me, I didn't ask. I internalized everything, and I didn't vocalize. I did more internalization than I did vocalization. And because of that, I didn't have a voice. But I do know that, I did have a voice, but I didn't use it, and I didn't know how to use it. But what I do know is that all of those years of suppression, all of those years of depression, all of those years of me being tight-lipped and not saying what was on my mind, what was going on internally, it was just a setup. It was a setup. Because now, depending on who you talk to, they say you talk too much. Why don't you pipe it down a little bit? If I let the powers be that thought that they knew how to control me, there would be no 4-in-1 podcast. There would be no Reading Between the Wines, because my message started to stir up a lot of mess. And not only did it start to stir up a lot of mess within me and get things stirred up and cleaned up, but the people that thought that they were masterminding and manipulating the situation and thought that they were getting over on me, it started to expose their mess. All I had to do was ask. I didn't know. I didn't know that things would get better and I didn't have to sit there and struggle and fight internally as long as I did. The only thing I had to do was just open up my mouth and ask. Now, when you open up your mouth and when you ask and you start receiving, some people may not like it. I can almost guarantee you that they won't like it. Like I said, if I went along with somebody else's plan, there would be no 4-in-1 podcast. There would be no Reading Between the Wines. I wouldn't be a financial coach. I wouldn't have my own business. I would have just sat there and did what everybody else did and did what everybody else does and get up every single day and go and work for somebody else and never pouring into myself, into my own business, into my legacy. And I've done that for so many years, and I decided to say, you know what, we're going to do something a little bit different. And it's songs like Mary J. Blige's work that actually help continue to push me through. When Mary says, let them get mad, they going to hate anyway, don't you get that? It doesn't matter if you're going on with their plan, because they'll never be happy because they're not happy with themselves. I surround myself, and maybe some of you out there are still doing or have done it in the past, surrounded yourself by people who didn't love themselves. And because they didn't love themselves, the only thing that they can do is mirror what they are, which was hate. And the next thing you know, they hating on you. So just like this song, Ask and You Shall Receive from the Clark Sisters, they got another song called Give It to Him. If there's anything that you're going through, any struggles, any hardships, just give it to him. And just remember, while you're going through this transition, because it's a transitional period, no comparison. Try not to compare yourself. No judgment. And if you have something, you can give it. But if you don't have it, then you can't give it. And if you don't have it, just ask and you shall receive. And then check this out. Because once we get into this episode, you're going to know where I'm going with this. Sometimes it's okay to just say, you know what? I just don't have it to give. Because there were times where I just didn't have it to give. But remember, asking you receive. Now, once you get it, now you have an obligation to give. Because you can't just take. Once you receive, you can't just and hold in and suppress and not give. Because someone along the line is going to need something. And when you interact with them, when you encounter, you have an obligation to give if you have it. But if you don't have it to give, I guess you just can't. So you're going to find out in a minute where I'm going with this. There's a such thing called the enabling syndrome. So we're obviously speaking about money. Let's just keep it real. That's what we're here to do. Speaking about money, financial literacy, whether it's tonight is from the spiritual aspect. Enabling syndrome. I'm going to share a story with you. Someone close to me understood and knew what was happening years ago. I'm going to say maybe 2 years ago as I was doing my studies to become a financial coach. They saw a shift and they understood and they knew what I was doing and they knew the plan that I was going. So instead of them doing what they needed to do because they had some information, I'm not going to say they had the same information that I had. I'm not going to say they started and they had the same leverage as I had. That's a good word. But they knew what was happening and they knew the type of person because I've always been this person. I've always been this person ever since I was younger and started working. I just surrounded myself by the wrong people and it just got all twisted and messed up. But this person that you're hearing today, it was always deep down inside. Maybe not at a high percentage as it is today, but there were bits and pieces of this always in me. So this individual who was close to me knew. And instead of them doing their work, they said, now when because this is what everybody thinks when you make it, like you really make it, like you don't get to a point where you just make it. Every single day you got to make that thing work. And you're not going to get there where you make it and you just sit back on a beach and you just chill and, you don't have to work. I mean, that doesn't work. Biblically, that doesn't work. So this individual, caught up in the matrix, they think that that's what happens. You can just sit back and sit on a beach and live the good life and have your Louis Vuitton bikini on and just be good like that. But yeah, doesn't work that way. This individual said, when you make it, can you break me off some bread? And he didn't like my response, and my response was absolutely not. I will not, because I'm not going to enable you. And that comes to anybody who's close to me, whether it's family, friends. I'm not an enabler. So as much time and energy and focus and pressure and time that it took for me to sacrifice to get to where I am here today, I am not an enabler, and I will absolutely not enable anybody that is close to me. And in fact, I have people who DM me, and if anybody out there is listening or ever listens to this replay down the line and you're close to me, whether it's friends or family or whatever, do not DM me asking me for money because you're not going to get it. Now, if it's, and I don't want to have that come off as harsh, but I've had people do that. I'm not giving people money. That's just not the way it works. They hear financial coach and you think that, oh, this is what it is. And the answer is absolutely not. Because unless you put the work in to figure this thing out yourself, I would be considered an enabler, and we're just not doing it. And only thing you are going to do when you give people money without them learning their lesson is create a bigger problem. They're not going to stop the excessive spending. They're not going to stop the impulsive spending. They're not going to stop their bad financial habits because they know that they just have an outlet. I can just reach out to X, Y, and Z and get money. Sometimes if you don't have it to give, you just don't have it to give. And in some cases, I don't have it to give to you. And you might have to tell your friends that. You might have to tell your family that. I know one person who was digging in their emergency fund to give their family money so that they can eat out at restaurants and do crazy stuff like that. So even though that person had the money in their emergency fund, it wasn't an emergency. Your family's needs, because of their ignorance, is not, you don't have it to give to them. You have it, yes, but you don't have it to give to them for that, because that's not the purpose of what that money's for. We have to exercise good stewardship, and that would be going against the plan. That would be going against biblical plans. So sometimes you just don't have it to give, and it is what it is. And Proverbs 13:4 says, the soul of the sluggard desireth, and hath nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. Clearly, right there. The soul of the sluggard desireth, and hath nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. You got to get up and you got to go to work and you got to work for it. And you have to put in whatever you have to put in to make sure that you get what you need to get. Now, if you sit back and you think that you want to collect from somebody else and you don't want to do your work and you just want to send Cash App requests or send DM requests out to people, and you're sitting on your butt and you're not doing what you're supposed to do and can't hustle and can't even go and get a job doing the minimalist thing you could possibly do. And I know it sounds harsh, but sometimes it's your family and your friends and your close people that will try to do you in versus a stranger in the street. I would be more apt to give my money to a homeless person than a family member that sits around and does absolutely nothing to help themselves or help their own situation. And that's what you're supposed to do, and that's what I would do. I'm not going to give money to somebody who is not doing what they're supposed to do. And if you're struggling financially, why would you be giving money away anyway? If you didn't secure your own house and you don't have your own situation under control, what would make you think that it's okay for you to give money to somebody else? Just the questions that I ask. Just some rhetorical questions that I ask. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and head on over to Richmond, Virginia tonight. We're going to help out Miss Clarissa, 39 years old, high school English teacher. And Clarissa is a devoted churchgoer and believer. But she's been tithing faithfully while quietly maxing out her credit cards just to stay afloat. She wonders if her financial struggles are a test or a warning sign to use wisdom over wishful thinking. So I'll go ahead and read that again. Miss Clarissa is a devoted churchgoer and believer, but she's been tithing faithfully while quietly maxing out her credit cards just to stay afloat. She wonders if her financial struggle is a test or a warning sign to use wisdom over wishful thinking. Now, I know that sometimes it just doesn't flow well when you deal with money and you deal with the Bible, you deal with spirituality, you deal with the church. This is a touchy topic. This segment, Spiritual Sunday, is a touchy podcast. Is a touchy segment of the 401 podcast. A lot of people may not like the responses that you hear tonight. They may not like how I started off the intro. I mean, it is what it is, but can I tell you that I learned a lot about this tithing thing. I learned, and I'm still learning. I'm not saying that I know everything. I have plenty. I wouldn't even put myself on a map as far as knowing scriptures and all that stuff. I know when they come to me, they come to me. Can I recite them and say, oh yeah, Proverbs, this, that, and First John? Absolutely not. Not at this moment. I can't. Not saying that, that won't happen in the future. But when I really started to pick up the Bible was in 2020, and I thought that I was reading it correctly, and I didn't realize that I wasn't reading it correctly until last year. So, all right, I still got some work to do. I have a lot of work to do. So tonight, this is my opinion. This is where I'm coming from, and everybody has their opinion and they're entitled to it. This is not any advice. I want to repeat, this is not any advice. Anybody out there who is seeking advice, maybe you might need to do your own due diligence, seek a professional. But I just want to lay that out there. There are several people who will probably get upset with tonight's messaging, especially those who are like Clarissa, a devout churchgoer. People who go to church and they give all of their money to the church. And I'm going to say that if you are giving all your money to the church and you're in debt, which I know a lot of people do that, I'm going to rewind it and put it this way. If your pastor, if your whoever has not had anything set up to speak about financial literacy and how you should be a good steward of your money and how finances tie into the Bible, and God has warned us of how we should conduct ourselves when it comes to money, then unfortunately, maybe you should look at into going to another church. That's the first thing. I think, and I have not been a devout churchgoer. I have not been going to church all my life. I've been in church in and out over the years, and I probably doesn't line up properly. Most of my education that I've learned about the Bible and everything came from learning on my own. Majority of it didn't really click in until I changed from Christianity to being a Hebrew Israelite. And I would say that is the first time that I heard a pastor speak about money is when I became a Hebrew Israelite. And I moved away from the prosperity teachers that are out there that say, give, and God's going to create a miracle and blessings are coming. The prosperity preachers out there, I'm not going to list their names. But once I found out all of this information that I found out that was in the Bible and how it was worded and what God wanted us to do with our money, I unsubscribe from all of the prosperity preachers out there. Absolutely not. Because as you're sitting there lining up their pockets and fattening their situation, I'm telling you, somebody's not going to like this tonight, but it is what it is. Fattening their pockets and situation. Not one time are they ever teaching you about doing the right thing with your money. And go and ask your church or your congregation or whatever, do they have a class on financial literacy? Do they have anything to help you budget your money properly? Do they have anything to help you get out of debt so that you don't get scammed by these debt uh, consolidation programs that are out there? If your church does not have anything to help from any of those I spoke about, you probably should get another church. Now, Clarissa has been tithing faithfully, given the 10% or more, I'm sure, but she didn't even have it for herself. So, again, I'm not saying I'm totally in and out and know the Bible from top to bottom and back to forth, but I do know that there is something in there that says that if you don't have it, then you don't give. And then there's also something that says give what you can. Now you have people who feel a certain way because they don't have what people are suggesting that they give, and now they're feeling a certain way and they're maxing out credit cards and doing backflips and robbing Peter to pay Paul just to make it work, and then struggling behind closed doors. And then, depending on how the situation is and the setup is, you're in a church situation and they're passing the collection plate around, and now you're feeling a certain way because you're not putting money into it, or you're not standing up and walking around and, tithing as you see everybody else does when the collection plate goes around. Then I saw something that was even more interesting, that everything is going digital. And instead of a plate being passed around, it's almost like a keypad that's being passed around. So you can tap and pay Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, whatever pay you pay. But they're passing this little device around and you're tapping your phone. That's an interesting situation because most likely that is tied to some sort of credit system. Never is it really, and I'm not going to say never, but rarely is it used to like come out of your bank account directly. Majority of Americans are in debt and they're in consumer debt. So therefore they're going to do the credit cards, they're going to do the buy now, pay later type stuff. So a lot of their accounts are set up to that. So in a church setting, this is what's happening, and more people are going into debt and they're tithing, or they feel that they're tithing, but they're doing it the wrong way. And uh, that's not part of the plan. It's not part of God's plan. Again, I do not want to speak out of pocket. I'm not sitting here saying that I am, in and out on this. I know the tops and bottoms. I can recite scripture from here or there. In most cases, some people say, well, I probably should not be speaking about it unless I had everything lined out properly. I get it. But for me and my tutelage from my pastor, it's been all spelled out. From my own visualization, reading the Bible, reading scripture, I see it. I've read it. And if I wanted to do research and pull it up right now, I can, but I don't want to keep us here waiting. But for those of you who are curious about it, I suggest you do your own research. And if there's anybody that feels a certain way about the topic tonight or the conversation, by all means, please reach out and DM me, let me know. I had one person tell me something already about creating biblical plans. When I said creating biblical plans, that didn't mean that I was rewriting them all over again. God has already done that for us. Yes, thank you for bringing that to my attention. That's not my job to rewrite any biblical plans, and that's not what it meant to say. I have an ad out there that says that. Creating plans for you, following the ones that were already written, is how you can become debt free. A lot of this stuff is in the Bible. Okay, but a lot of people think that, oh, the Bible is this and that, and you know, I and that's exactly why people are in the situation that they're in. I'm just going to put it that way. That is exactly why some of us are in the situation that we have been in and will continuously stay the same way because of lack of knowledge. And didn't he warn us that people will perish due to a lack of knowledge? It's all there. And unless you decide to get up and do the right thing and go through there and figure it out yourself or seek coaching or seek counseling, it is what it is. So, Miss Clarissa, is this financial struggle a test? I would say absolutely. Because until we learn, we're going to continue to keep repeating the same things over and over and over again. So I believe that this is a test. And this is a test because we have to be careful of the people that we follow. And we have to make sure that we put in our work as well. So, yes, your church might tell you that it's one thing, but when you go home, you need to make sure that that lines up and you need to go further and you need to go beyond what you're learning for the hour in church once a week on a Sunday. If you're a Hebrew Israelite, multiple times a week and it's Saturday. But I don't know. So I'm just putting it out there. Wisdom over wishful thinking. Um, I don't think that there's any wisdom behind this. And I know that that's probably harsh because there's no wisdom when you are going to swipe a credit card and think that God's going to wave a magical wand and clear your debt. When you're continuously swiping credit cards over and over and over again, even though you are tithing and you're putting into the church. But the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you're putting into yourself and that you have built your house on solid ground, not build a house of cards that's ready to crumble as soon as the first storm comes through. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. And if you do the math, you're probably spending more money in interest. And I believe that it's not part of the plan. Again, my opinion, it is a test. And until you get this right, you're going to have to do this and take this test over and over and over and over again. And if you don't pull out quick enough, your house of cards will definitely crumble down. And it's still going to be a test for you because when you build yourself back up, when you get yourself out of debt, most people, and I'm just saying most people don't learn their lesson and they go and they do it again. So it all depends on how hard you fall and how quick you're able to turn this thing around. I'm hoping that you can turn it around. I know you can turn it around. We all can. But I do not think that it's wise. And I do think that it's you have some financial struggle. I think a lot of our financial struggles are a test. Until we learn our lesson, we're going to have to keep doing it over and over and over again. And a lot of people, us, will go into like, I was speaking to someone close to me about credit card consolidation. Oh, I reached out to this person and they're going to do it for me. Yeah, they're going to do it for you and you did not do the work yourself. You sat there and you put your trust, your energy, your focus, your time, your money into somebody else doing it for you instead of you doing it yourself. So what's going to happen 9 out of 10 times is you're going to get comfortable again because the old version of you was very comfortable and that's what got you into the situation. I mean, I was in and out of credit card debt at least 3 times. And this last time, I know in my 40s that, that it was a struggle. 20s, okay, boom, we get out. We say we won't do it again. 30s, oh, that was a little more work than last time, but we still here. We out. And they did it again. And the struggle that it took to get out in my 40s versus how easy it was in my 20s, I ain't doing that again. because then there may not be a next time. So this is why some people stay away from the church. And I'm not trying to say anything, but I know a lot of people who do not go into the church because they see how money is being mismanaged, how people aren't being educated. And it's some churches, and I'm putting it out there, it's a system to keep people stuck, keep them locked in, keep them donating to the church. Meanwhile, everything else is falling apart. Now, once you get yourself lined up properly and your finances are good and you have it to give, yes, that is a great thing to do. That is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to give, because if you don't, there could be repercussions for that too. So there's enough to be said about people who don't have it and who are breaking their back and still doing the wrong thing because they're tithing and are giving money when they don't have it. But what about the people who have the money and they don't give? That'll be a whole nother conversation, a whole nother podcast, but there are repercussions for both. So you can think that you're high on your horse and you got all your money and you want to be Scrooge McDuck and you're not tithing and giving to the community and giving to people who are less fortunate than you. But there is some biblical scriptures as well and principles as well for giving once you've reached a certain level. If you have any questions about tonight's podcast, you want to chime in on the burning questions tonight, you can reach me at 609-200-1098. Again, that number is 609-200-1098. That is the official 411 podcast Reading Between the Wines hotline. And like I said, tonight's topic, I get it. It's not the most easiest topic to speak about, but it's reality, and so many people get stuck into that prosperity type of situation. And if anybody tells you that God told them to tell you something, I'd be very cautious about that. Because if God wants to tell you something, I'm pretty sure that he can tell you yourself. You'll have that one-on-one, deep, intimate connection and conversation. Yes, God can speak through other people and messaging and all that stuff, but why you need to learn from a second person? God told me to tell you what? So be very careful about that. And a lot of that happens in some of these environments. God told me to tell you that, and I'm not even getting into it, but you know exactly what I'm talking about for those of you who understand. Burning questions. Is it faith to give, or is it financial fantasy marked as spirituality? Is it faith to give what you don't have, or is it financial fantasy marked as spirituality? So this burning question ties in so well, of course, with what we were speaking about, but it can go one or two ways. Is it faith to give what you don't have? I would say yes, depending on the mindset that you have, because if you don't have it, depending on the circumstance, but you gave what you could, you still took care of yourself, you still know what you can and cannot do, and sometimes if you don't have it, but you give what you can in a moment, knowing that you're doing everything that you've done, you've prayed over it, you had your one-on-one conversation, and you know what the end game is, and you have faith that it will come back, I would say yes in that aspect. Unfortunately, in Clarissa's aspect, when it's a repetitive, cyclical cycle over and over and over again, and there's no end game as far as getting out of it, That could be a situation. And I don't believe that that's faith. I think that that's foolishness, actually. And let me give you an example of if it is faith to give what you don't have. So you have $20 in your pocket to get something to eat. Someone asks you for money. Excuse me. Someone asks you for money and you don't have it. Now, yes, you have that $20 in your pocket for you to eat, but clearly you don't have any extra money to be given to anybody because maybe you need it for bills, or you budgeted everything out for the week and you have exactly what you have to get you to the next pay cycle. So technically, if someone asks you, do you have some money, you don't have it. Not to give, but you give it anyway. Now you give it with faith, knowing that this is going to help somebody in need. And maybe they need it a little bit more than I do at this moment. And I'm going to sacrifice whatever I have to sacrifice. So I don't really have it to give, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So you give them the money and you sacrifice and you do whatever you have to do to make it get by till the next week. I believe that that's faith. And I believe that people operate in that aspect. When you hear the term, the more you give, the more you get, that's when blessings come flowing, overflowing. And it's happened to me. $20 here or there. You see someone outside the store that needs something. You see a homeless person. You see somebody struggling in a line before you to pay because they don't have, the extra, 10 cents, 20 cents, whatever it might be. And you throw an extra dollar in there to make sure that the person can get through the line and get out the store without a problem. That's one aspect of giving versus the other aspect of giving, which we spoke about earlier in the podcast. There's different levels to this, and there's different ways, and there's different. So sometimes you just don't have it to give. And depending on the situation, you just don't have it to give. I would say if you're doing it in a way where you're signing yourself up to repetitive subscriptions to, charities, knowing full well that you don't have your financial setup properly to sustain that and hold that, but now you're giving to some charities because you think that that's the right thing to do. You believe that that's the right thing to do. There's different levels to this. I say if you give what you don't have, it's a one-off situation. Like I said, it's a homeless person. It's somebody who, really needs it. It makes sense. There's a desire. There's a tragedy. There's something that, okay, one-time situation. I would say that's faith when you don't have it. But when you're setting up and you're repeating the same cycle over and over and over again, you're giving your money to family and friends who clearly can get up and do the right thing for themselves. I don't think that's a good situation. And I think that that would be what we would consider financial fantasy, thinking that something's going to turn and change. Because as I continue to keep pouring money into this situation, that God's going to turn around and, change this situation from me and make a miracle because I'm doing the right thing. Over and over again, week after week, I'm doing the right thing. I'm going back to the church. I'm giving money to the church. I have the auto pay set up to where, this specific charity, this specific 501c3 takes out of my account every single month. I'm doing the right thing. That's the right thing to do. But meanwhile, I can't pay my bills. Meanwhile, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, I don't have an emergency fund. Meanwhile, there's no exit plan to stop this bleeding, this financial bleeding. I think that that's financial fantasy. But you sacrificing, you doing whatever you got to do, digging in your purse, digging into your wallet to help the homeless person on a corner. I think that that's faith. And I think that people who do things like that, they will be repaid probably tenfold. People who make personal sacrifices so that someone else, and they start to think about other people than thinking about themselves. Burning questions. Let me know how you feel about tonight's burning question. Let me know how you feel about tonight's show. 609-200-1098. That's the official 411 podcast hotline. Track 15, Faith versus Fantasy. Disc 5, Restoration. You can DM me on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok. I am also on YouTube, DLive, Twitch, and Daily Motion. You can head on over to LarenGaines.com and sign up for my free monthly newsletter, Whispers of Wisdom, monthly inspiration updates, motivation exclusives, updates on debt-free living from the spiritual, mental, physical, financial aspect. If there is something that you heard tonight, if there's something that sparks some interest in you, maybe there might be somebody that you know that could benefit from this. Guide them to LarenGaines.com. You can sign up for a free 15-minute consultation. Maybe you're looking to restore your financial. We work with debt-free living from the aspect of spiritual, mental, physical, and financial. And I'll break that down as far as what that means, because when I was going through my awakening in 2020, it was in phases. It didn't happen all at once. And there's different levels to this. So just because you have one awakening or one level of enlightenment, it's not that you have made it. I spoke about that earlier. There's different levels. But I believe, and this is why I created Black Diamond Consultations, but I believe that the best way to get yourself on track financially is to focus on your spiritual. Focus on your spiritual. Know who you are. Know thyself. Understand and know who you are. And after you focus on that pillar and you're feeling good about that pillar, not saying that we conquered it and we're 100%, because again, there's levels to this and we have to continue to work and we have to continue to build upon and build upon and build upon. But the spiritual aspect is very important. I'm very cautious and very leery of even interacting and focusing on people who don't have their spiritual under control. Not under control, but they don't have a spiritual foundation, put it that way. For example, one of my ex-bosses told me, oh yeah, I grew up as a Christian, I grew up as this and I grew up as that, but guess what? I don't believe in any of that. So right then and there, that's the red flags right there. You're a leader and you're sitting here telling me that you don't believe in anything. So basically you're telling me and letting me and everybody else know that you don't even believe in yourself. So I believe everything starts with self. So spiritual foundation is the first aspect. After that, after you're feeling good about that, that's a good word, after you're feeling good, then I believe, and again, this is my belief system, this is my company that I started, Black Diamond Consultation. So if you don't agree in this order, you don't agree with anything that I'm speaking about tonight, then everyone has their opinion and you can handle it how you handle it. I'm just letting you know how I got on my journey and how I became debt free, focusing heavily on the spiritual foundation first. I had to understand and know who I was before moving forward because I forgot who I was. Then I believe that it's very important to focus on the mental. I had to focus on the mental aspect and delete all of the negative things that I thought and learned and that was programmed in me about money. Every single thing I had to delete. Only thing I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that neuroplasticity is a thing. And I'm living proof of that. Yes, it is a thing. You can reprogram your mind. And you better reprogram your mind instead of letting somebody else program you. And we've been programmed ever since we were in these school systems. And of course, our parents, our upbringing, we've been programmed and conditioned to do exactly what they learned how to do. Then, after you reprogram your mind and you focus on that mental, like I said, neuroplasticity is a thing, it's real. Now, once you understand, let's focus on being better in the real world. Let's focus on how we're showing up physically in the real world. What were the mistakes that we were making with money when it comes to the physical aspect, when it comes to the fleshly aspect? Whether it's food, because that's the first thing. Whether it's clothes, shopping, all of that aspect, all of the worldly things, that's the physical aspect. Then after we get the physical, now we move into financial wealth building. And I heard something so profound today. A lot of us that we want microwave, we think that wealth is to be built, through doing a microwave method, that quick, fast, easy method. But for people who truly know what wealth building is, it's like a crock pot. I thought that was so profound when I heard that today. Building wealth is like cooking in a crock pot versus what most people want today and most of society wants today is that microwave wealth, which doesn't exist. Now you can be rich. You can be rich in things such as clothes, cars, jewelry, all those types of things, which is what you'll find when you scroll on Instagram and any other social media, because that's what they want you to believe, that that's what real life is like. Okay. But there's a such thing as people who are wealthy. They don't look wealthy because they're not worried about impressing people and they're not worried about the outer appearance. See, man focuses on the outer appearance. That's what we do. We want to look on the outer appearance and see if everything looks good and, y'all know how it goes. Wealth you can't see. The riches is what we see. But true wealth you can't see. And I'm gonna put this note here before we get on out of here. And this is why we shouldn't judge people. Because when you look at the outer appearance so much and you're so focused on the outer appearance, a lot of us are passing millionaires on a day-to-day basis and are turning our nose up at these people because they don't look how we think they should look. The next time somebody holds the door open for you at the store and it's just like a regular old person, you're probably have come across somebody who's a millionaire. The person who lets you go in front of them in the line and they're not all crazed in their mind and so quick and fast and huffing and puffing and switching side to side trying to get out of the store. The person that's like, yeah, sure, you can go in front of me. Probably somebody who has a little bit of wealth there. The person that you pass by on a highway or on a road and you're speeding by, knowing that you're going well over the speed limit to begin with, and you just can't be bothered with the person who's actually doing the speed limit, most likely And I'm not saying this is the case, but there have been some studies, and the reports have shown that these are people who are wealthy. Now, a lot of people who are rich, who want to be rich, they have these things and they're rich for the moment. See, rich isn't long term because they blow it and they mismanage their money on material things, expensive lifestyle. Even balance, people. Healthy balance. You can have a little bit of everything that you want in life. You just can't get too crazy over any one thing. So for me, of course, who doesn't want to be rich, right? But we need to have some wealth along with that too. Some people just want to be rich and they don't want to go through the aspect of what it takes to build wealth, and it takes time and it takes reps and it takes education and it takes learning and it takes growing. A lot of people don't want to do that. And that's okay. Everybody, you go on your own journey, you do what you want to do. But for those of you who are interested in, first, let's just look at where we're at right here now. You might be in debt. This is where Black Diamond Consultation comes in for people who are in debt. I'm not even focusing on being rich and wealthy and all of that stuff. That happens over a long period of time. And that's the end game. You have to be able to see the end game, recognize that you might be in some mess, but you know what your end game is. You can see the end game. And we're going to start by cleaning up this mess right here today. But it's not for everybody. Because if you are not willing to put in the work, and if you are not sick and tired of being sick and tired, you have to be sick and tired of being sick and good and tired of yourself. You have to be sick of the poor habits that you've been doing. You have to be sick of the way that you've been living. You have to be sick when you look at your bank account and you don't want to do it anymore. Your credit cards might be maxed out. And if they're not maxed out and you cut them up and you burn them and you did whatever you had to do, you shredded them and you vow that you're never going to do it again, you might be on the right path. Some people, they go through this whole routine and this whole ritual, and then after they get out of debt, they turn around and they go back in it. I'm talking to the people who don't want to do it no more. You've been there and done that before. You understand and you know what this is. And you've hit this brick wall, and you have fell down and you can't get any lower. Those are the people that might be able to benefit from this. And you heard me when I said might, because there are no guarantees, because guess what? I can't do anything for you. You have to do it. You have to put in the reps. You have to get the information. You have to get the education, which will be there. But it's up to you if you're going to go ahead and do what you need to do. And on that note, I want to say thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Spiritual Sunday. This was a deep conversation tonight that, hey, listen, it might be for some people, it may not, but for those of you, I understand. Thank you. And those of you out there who don't like it, I get it too. Tomorrow, we have Mental Monday. Same place, same time. 411 Podcast. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same place, same time. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Mental Mondays, the 411 Podcast. Thank y'all so much. Take care. Have a good night.